Hollywood as an industry is, and always will be surrounded by opinions, controversies, thoughts, emotions, and feuds. However, once in a blue moon occurs an incident that shocks the industry and disrupts its very foundation. One such incident occurred in 1977. While the industry has a nasty reputation for career growth based on illegal favors, this one takes things to another level. We are talking about the 1970s, when illegal substances, alcohol, and intimacy exploded the industry, altered its course forever. If you remember one of our previous videos, we covered the worst alcoholics in the industry that are there. Out of those, many lost their lives to the addiction while others made it out and learned a life lesson. How can raping a minor be justified in any sense? How can a victim support the rapist and say that he should not suffer anymore? What is this twisted occurrence and what happened? Sit back and relax as we talk about the most controversial act committed by Roman Polanski, which might make him worthy of the title. The most evil man in Hollywood. 1. New Hollywood. Essay on minor. As serious as this allegation is, we strongly feel that our viewers must be provided with some context so that they can understand better why some well-known industrial figure such as Roman Polanski is being accused of a heinous crime like this. The simple answer would be because he did it. That is true, as the victim has testified herself, and not only in court, but legit articles and YouTube videos are supporting her claims and showing glimpses of live interviews where she told about what happened to her in great detail. But who likes it simple, right? Matters seem simple until you are just scratching the surface. If you invest 25 minutes of your time watching a video, you might as well learn everything you can and go beneath the surface. Let us start digging into the truth and controversy of the essay of Samantha Geimer. For starters, let's dial back to the 1970s when the term Hollywood was famously known as the New Hollywood, and not without reason. It was a transformative era for Hollywood as an industry. The era of new directors, producers, and fresh talent flooded and changed the industry for good. While the creative standards went up, the dark side became darker as well. There is no denying the fact that almost everyone is aware of what goes on in industries like these. Without getting into details, let's just say that people are aware of who will last how long in the industry. While positive changes were brought in the 1970s in Hollywood, illegal substances, alcohol, and intimacy for that matter became the core essence of discussions. Illegal substances and alcohol have always been part of this industry. However, during this time it was less frowned upon. To be included and feel recognized in the industry, it was important to be involved in either of these activities. Younger actresses having relationships with older stars was the new normal. Casting couch was one of the darkest things at the time, which was there in front of everyone's eyes, but not one actually wanted to talk about it. Being physically involved with producers and other prominent figures of the industry to get ahead in careers. As disgusting as it might sound, the fact is undeniable that it happened. Now, everything has its pros and cons, and speaking of an act like this, it definitely had more cons than pros. More and more complaints began to flood in from actresses where some or the other figure from the industry tried to be involved with them physically without their consent. This is just a plain picture that we painted to give you some context of Hollywood in the 1970s. Whereas drugs and alcohol destroyed multiple careers, sexual crimes, on the other hand, changed the lives of many and the viewer's perspective of seeing Hollywood as an industry. Now then, let us understand what actually happened with Samantha Geimer. 2. Samantha Geimer. Samantha was one of those hundreds and thousands of people who were passionate about entering the industry for obvious reasons. The fame, money, and glamour attracted her unlike anyone else who had the intention of getting a taste of the elite class. To be more specific, it was her mother who was eager to make a better life for Samantha. It was early on in her life when Samantha and her family moved to New Hollywood. Samantha's mother was a model and a TV actress herself, so it was easier than others for her to settle in an environment that Hollywood presented. Roman Polanski at the time was a renowned figure in the industry. Celebrated for his artistic vision, he gained a significant amount of fame for his work, such as Rosemary's Baby 1968 and Chinatown 1974. Roman approached Samantha's mother, Susan Gailey, through a common friend. Susan agreed to the meeting and called Roman at her place, where he met Samantha for the first time as well. Roman's approach was that he was looking for young models at the time, specifically teenagers, for a Vogue magazine shoot, and wanted to know if Samantha would be interested in taking part. He presented it as a legitimate modeling gig while seeking Susan's permission to take her daughter to specific locations for the shoot to be more authentic. What seemed like the perfect opportunity for Samantha's career was about to turn into a nightmare that would alter her life forever. In an interview, Samantha was questioned about her first interaction with Roman and what was he like in person. To this, Samantha answered that he felt like any other regular adult who had just come to their place with a work-related matter. Susan agreed to it, and the schedule was set for the photo shoot to commence. Susan insisted that she wanted to be a part of it and wanted to tag along with Roman and her daughter so that she could witness it herself. However, Roman was stern about it and constantly neglected her tagging along with them. This was the first red flag, or a sign you could say, which denoted that something was not right. Roman decided to have one of the shoots at actor Jack Nicholson's place in the Mulholland area of Los Angeles. Nicholson at the time was not there in his home, so it was the perfect opportunity for Roman to move on with his plan. While they were traveling to the shoot location, Roman asked Samantha some questions which surely made her uncomfortable, and it did ring a few bells in her ears as to why is a 43-year-old man asking such inappropriate questions to a 13-year-old girl. Did she have a boyfriend? Has she had S yet? How many times did she engage in such activities? Were a few of the questions raised by Roman to Samantha. Despite being in an uncomfortable position at the moment, Samantha answered the question to the best of her abilities. They reached Nicholson's place and the shoot began. It was during one of the scenes when Samantha was changing her costume and Roman asked her to be shirtless for a couple of photos. Considering it all as a part of the job, Samantha did as he asked her to do so. Nicholson at the time was at a ski resort in Colorado, but her girlfriend Angelica Houston was there. Samantha also recalls that before the shoot she was given a drink, champagne to be specific. What she wasn't aware was of the fact that it had some pills in it, which made her high and sort of unconscious. Post-drinking, Roman asked Samantha to get in the jacuzzi, where she was supposed to be completely naked. As per her testimony, it was during one of these instances when Roman tried to enter the jacuzzi along with Samantha. It was during this moment she felt that something was off. More than that, she was concrete in her mind that this is something that is not supposed to happen, and it was not going right. She has testified that we did photos with me drinking champagne. Toward the end it got a little scary, and I realized he had other intentions, and I knew I was not where I should be. I just didn't quite know how to get myself out of there. In a 2003 interview, she recalled that she began to feel uncomfortable after he asked her to lie down on a bed and described how she attempted to resist. I said, no, I don't want to go in there. No, I don't want to do this. No. And then I didn't know what else to do. We were alone and I didn't know what else would happen if I made a scene. So I was just scared, and after giving some resistance, I figured, well, I guess I'll get to come home after this. It was downright traumatic as to what she had to go through. Another shocking fact was that, as per Samantha's testimony, she felt uncomfortable in the first shoot itself but agreed to a second one anyway in which all this happened. Susan, her mother, also permitted a private shoot. Roman's heinous act came to an end when Nicholson's girlfriend Houston came back to his place. She was suspicious as to what was going on behind the closed door. She then started banging on the door, asking Roman to open the door. Roman excused her, saying that the shoot was still going on and they needed more time. After all of it wrapped up, Samantha was finally being dropped home by the same monster for a man who drugged and allegedly raped her while she was still a minor. Roman said only one thing to Samantha on her way back: don't tell you about it, your mother. But it did not happen. The same evening, Susan rang the police and told them about everything that had happened with her daughter. 3. Police and justice system. It was on March 10, 1997, when 43-year-old Roman Polanski was arrested by the Los Angeles Police Department and had 6 charges placed against him. Under the terms of his plea agreement, Roman was asked to report to a California state prison for a 90-day psychiatric evaluation. However, the court postponed the date of his evaluation and allowed him to complete one of his ongoing projects. While in Europe working on the 1979 remake of Hurricane, Polanski was photographed at Oktoberfest in Munich, surrounded by young girls and beer, which raised eyebrows and drew criticism. He ultimately reported to Chino State Prison on December 19, 1977, where he served 42 days of the scheduled evaluation. His lawyers anticipated that he would receive probation at his upcoming sentencing hearing, as recommendations against prison time came from the probation officer, examining psychiatrist, and even the victim. Things grew even more tense when the judge at that time, Lawrence J. Rittenband, became suspicious of Roman's behavior and attitude. When his Europe photographs were seen by Deputy District Attorney David Wells, he shared those images with Rittenband. This raised concerns regarding the fact that Roman might be taking the charges pressed against him too lightly. The judge expressed her dissatisfaction with the result of the psychiatric evaluation as compared to the charges pressed against the Hollywood personality. During this time, in January 1978, Polanski lost his job as the director of the movie director of Hurricane. Fearing imprisonment, he decided to flee America. He initially moved to London where he had a residence, but then saw fit to move to France where he had citizenship. This was a strategic move from his point of view, as France does not extradite its own citizens to face charges in some other country. During this time he continued his work as an acclaimed filmmaker where he did some amazing work that was rewarded adequately. Some of his notable works from the time include Tess 1979, which was an adaptation of Thomas Hardy's novel that received several awards and nominations, and The Pianist 2002, which was based on the memoir of Polish Jewish pianist Ladislaw Sipelman. Interestingly, this won him the Academy Award for Best Director. Despite his professional success and multiple successful projects, the tag of a fugitive stayed on in his life. He remained largely in exile, avoiding travel to countries that might extradite him to the US for sentencing. His continued success in filmmaking, combined with his fugitive status, fueled ongoing discussions about the nature of his crimes and the complexities of separating his artistic achievements from his personal misconduct. In September 2009, Roman intended to attend the Zurich Film Festival, where he was supposed to be awarded for some of his best work. While at the Zurich airport, he was arrested and taken into custody by airport authorities, as if he were trying to enter Switzerland. The arrest was based on a 1977 U.S. warrant for the same charges he escaped from back then. He served 90 days in Swiss prison and was later moved to his villa as a form of house arrest. The arrest sparked yet another debate, which reignited the flames of the 1997 horrific incident. The U.S. sought to extradite him, while there was a constant argument that the crime and the overall matter were mishandled, stating that he had served his sentence. Ultimately, after the lengthy trial and lack of concrete evidence against him, the Swiss government decided not to extradite him to the U.S. and he was released from house detention as well. They were also driven by the concern that the case would not be handled appropriately by the U.S. government. While the U.S. and Swiss government made their standpoints, other countries have their say about the situation. Poland is Roman's birthplace, and most of its population has shown support for the actor, considering him a national treasure for the country. Over the accusations pressed against him, they are inclined to put his professional foot forward and remind everyone about his contribution to the film industry in general. 4. Roman Polanski's views. But how did the man himself, Roman Polanski, react to the allegations and charges being pressed against him, and what was his view on the verdict? He claims to have been treated unjustly and painted himself as the victim in the highlight of this incident. In an interview in 1979 with an acknowledged novelist, Martin Amis, he remarked that if he had killed someone, it would not have given him this much attention as he is getting at the moment. Additionally, he indicated a detachment from the case he was subjected to. One of his comments which he made during the interview sparked a global debate on how insensitive he was in expressing such words, but also on the fact of his thinking towards girls, or women for that matter. Juries want to F young girls. Everybody wants to F young girls. This also raised several remarks on his seriousness towards the adversity of the situation. In the interviews that followed after the previous one, particularly in 1983, Polanski openly acknowledged his attraction to young girls, saying, "I like the girls of that age. And because the girls of that age, for some reason, like me." When asked whether an incident like the assault was bound to happen, he admitted, looking back at it, it probably was bound to happen. Yes, a statement that was seen as an attempt to rationalize his behavior rather than take full responsibility for his actions. Over the years, Polanski maintained that he had already faced significant consequences for his crime and that the original case had been mishandled, often highlighting the media frenzy surrounding his arrest as a contributing factor to his flight from justice. 5. Hollywood's standpoint. Speaking of justice, multiple viewpoints came in from other people in the industry and the general public as well. Everyone had their own opinions to express on the incident that took place, which shocked Hollywood to its core, but more importantly, it landed either in support or against Roman Polanski. The allegations placed against Roman Polanski were of a major degree. Many subsequent directors, producers, and actors expressed their shock and surprise at what happened. At the same time, there were a few who supported Roman. Woody Allen, for instance, disregarded the matter as a tragic misunderstanding. Additionally, he reflected on the type of work that Polanski had done in the industry. As the years went by, the narrative surrounding Polanski began to shift. The public's reaction increased extensively, which included expressing outrage over the nature of his crime and the fact that he fled justice. This outrage intensified with the rise of the #MeToo movement, which sparked national conversations about sexual violence and the need for accountability. public protests emerged against Polanski during award ceremonies and film festivals, where demonstrators called for a reckoning with his past actions. The protests highlighted a growing societal intolerance for behaviors that had long been overlooked in the name of artistic legacy, with activists and advocates for victims' rights demanding that the industry confront its complicity in enabling such figures. Additionally, the media played a crucial role in shaping public perception. Documentaries such as Roman Polanski, Wanted and Desired, examined the case in detail, shedding light on the complexities of the legal proceedings and public sentiment. This increased visibility led many in the general public to view Polanski not just as a talented filmmaker but as a figure who represented the darker side of celebrity culture, where talent could overshadow serious wrongdoing. Furthermore, public opinion about Polanski has become increasingly negative over time, particularly as more victims have come forward to share their experiences. Many people began to advocate for a more comprehensive understanding of consent and the long-term impact of such offenses, resulting in a growing chorus of voices demanding justice for survivors. Social media has also played a significant role in shaping public discourse, with platforms allowing for a wider range of voices to speak out against figures like Polanski and challenge the normalization of predatory behavior. This brings us back to one of the things that Samantha quoted in one of her interviews years after the incident occurred. She stated that when there is such a respected figure in the industry who has power, fame, and all the influence they want, it is easy to get away with things. It becomes easy to escape matters like these, and the person is no longer used to listening to no, as no one denies that figure of authority from anything whatsoever. She also connected this to the motive of Roman indulging in sexual behavior with her. At the same time, she claimed that she was only 13 and under substance influence. This acted as assistance in Roman carrying out his act, as there was nothing much she could do at the moment other than merely resist and ask him not to force himself upon her. 6. Samantha and Roman in 2024. While Roman Polanski has not issued a formal sort of apology to Samantha for his actions, he has expressed regret for what he did and apologized on a public platform to Samantha on multiple occasions. He has stressed apologizing for the impact his actions might have had on her when she was 13 years old. On the other hand, Samantha has spoken publicly about her experience and what did she go through at the time. While she agrees that the incident is of significant importance and has impacted the way she led her life from then on, she does not wish for Roman to be punished further. She feels that it was just a one-time thing and he has suffered enough for his actions in all these years that followed the incident. In a 2017 interview with the New York Times, Samantha stated that she forgives Polanski and feels that the legal pursuit against him has been excessive. She argued that this has gone longer than anticipated and, as a result, hindered her ability to heal and live her life. She indicated that she would like the legal system to resolve the matter, allowing Polanski to return to the U.S. without the threat of arrest. Geimer's perspective reflects a desire for closure rather than retribution, and she has advocated for a more compassionate understanding of her own experiences and the complexities involved in her case. Polanski has expressed remorse in interviews, stating that he regrets the incident and acknowledges the impact it had on Geimer's life. However, he has often framed his apologies in a broader context, discussing his suffering and the repercussions he faced due to the incident and the subsequent legal battles. For instance, he has referred to the media frenzy surrounding his arrest and the subsequent flight from justice as a source of personal tragedy, often emphasizing that it negatively affected his life and career. In another interview, the question was raised to Samantha if she would call Roman Polanski a pedophile or something under this category. To this, she replied that she considered Roman as just a person who made a terrible decision. While she acknowledges the fact that she was raped by him, she also emphasizes the point that he cannot be put under the category of a pedophile. She feels that this remark would go on to label his behavior as repeatedly engaging in such activities, but it is not the way that he has led his life. Additionally, when asked about their relationship, she just described it as complicated. She feels that there is a forced connection between the two and it cannot be denied. Even today, they get in touch by mail. 7. Murder of Sharon Tate. Roman Polanski spent a significant portion of his life dealing with the allegations and cases against him. But what about before this? Was there anything shattering that he went through? Unfortunately, there is. On the night of August 8 or 9, 1969, his wife was brutally murdered in the cold. The murder in itself is so shocking that it scarred America in a way something never done before. If the murder wasn't enough, there is another bomb to be dropped. Turns out that his wife was 8 months pregnant at the time she was murdered. Tate was a fine young actress who was featured in films such as Valley of the Dolls and The Fearless Vampire Killers. This was directed by Polanski himself. The murder took place at their home at 10050 Cielo Drive in Los Angeles, a residence the couple had rented while Polanski was working on a film project in Europe. The attackers were identified to be members of the Manson family, who were part of a cult group led by Charles Manson. Their psychotic mindset was driven by twisted intentions and actions that scared the living crap out of an ordinary person. The killing was organized by Charles Manson, who directed his followers to carry out the killings as part of what he believed would be a catalytic event to incite a race war, which he called Helter Skelter, inspired by the Beatles' song of the same name. On the night of the murder, 4 members of the Manson made their way to Polanski's place: Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian. Their first encounter was with Stephen Parent, who was one of the friends of the property's caretaker. Reports suggest that Stephen was shot dead while he was attempting to flee the scene in his car. The 4 people then proceeded to enter the home and carry out their murders, but not before torturing the inmates. Sharon Tate, along with her friends Jay Sebring, a well-known hairstylist, Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune, and Wojciech Frykowski, a friend of Polanski and Folger's boyfriend, were subjected to a night of unimaginable horror. Despite Tate's pleas for the life of her unborn child, the assailants showed no mercy. Tate was stabbed 16 times, while the other victims were also brutally attacked and murdered. The word "pig" was written in Tate's blood on the front door of the house, a gruesome detail that added to the shock and horror of the crime. Polanski rushed back from London the instant he got the news, as he was devastated by the fact of what happened. The case stirred up a frenzy in the media, as the residents of the community and investigators were baffled, seeing the level of crime that had been committed in just one night. It wasn't until a few months later that the case was solved, when the dots were finally connected to the Manson family, which led to their arrests eventually. This traumatized all of America, as the Charles Manson group at the time was a hot topic of discussion, which was major since all their killings were carried out based on visions and thoughts only they saw. Polanski has spoken of the incident on multiple occasions on a public platform. He has also highlighted the grief and sadness that swept over him when he got to hear of the incident. The trial of Charles Manson and the group's followers was a hallmark of the American legal system. While many were convicted of murders and sentenced to death, the sentences were later converted to life imprisonment. Manson remained one of the most notorious figures in the history of America until he died in 2017. Saying all that, it would not be true justice to ignore the positive contributions that Roman Polanski has made to the industry. His innovative storytelling, distinctive directorial style, and the ability to explore complex, often unsettling themes with a unique artistic vision were his identity. Polanski's work is underscored by a blend of psychological intensity, atmospheric tension, and a deep exploration of the human psyche, which resonated strongly with audiences and critics alike. His early films, such as Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby, redefined the horror and thriller genres by moving away from traditional supernatural elements and instead focusing on the internal fears and anxieties of his characters. This shift towards psychological horror created a new subgenre that influenced countless filmmakers who followed. His ability to craft intricate narratives with richly developed characters set a new standard for screenwriting and direction, inspiring a generation of filmmakers to pursue more complex and sophisticated storytelling in their work. Polanski's contributions to the industry also include his ability to bring European art house sensibilities to Hollywood, effectively bridging the gap between mainstream and avant-garde cinema. His films often feature meticulous attention to detail, with an emphasis on creating immersive atmospheres that draw viewers into the world of the story. This has led to the creation of some of the most iconic and memorable scenes in film history, such as the chilling climax of Rosemary's Baby or the shocking revelation in Chinatown. Beyond his technical prowess, Polanski's work is also notable for its exploration of themes such as paranoia, alienation, and the darker aspects of human nature, which resonated deeply with audiences during the tumultuous social and political climate of the 1960s and 1970s. These themes gave his films a timeless quality, making them relevant to audiences long after their initial release.